Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the sands of the Sahara, beyond the endless dunes that stretch like waves of a golden ocean? Most imagine only emptiness, vast silence, scorching winds, and a desert without memory. But hidden beneath this veil of timeless sand lies one of humanity's oldest and most mysterious spiritual legacies, the sacred circles of Nabta Playa. Thousands of years before the pyramids rose along the Nile, before the pharaohs wore their crowns of gold, there were people in the heart of the Sahara who gazed at the sky and etched their knowledge into stone. These were not kings, nor builders of empires as we understand them. They were humble nomads, cattle herders, and star watchers. And yet, they aligned their monuments with the heavens so precisely that modern astronomers stand in awe of their cosmic awareness. Imagine a time around 7500 BCE, a world in which the Sahara was not the barren wasteland we know today. It was a fertile land of grasslands, lakes, and thriving life. Here, the Nabta people gathered in a place we now call Nabta Playa. They carved great stones and arranged them into circles, their purpose echoing with silence across the millennia. Were these simple calendars to mark the solstices? Or were they sacred temples, places where heaven and earth met in ritual union? The mystery deepens when you realize that these structures predate Stonehenge by thousands of years. They even come before the earliest pyramids of Egypt. And yet, how often do we hear their name whispered in the halls of history? Almost never. It is as though the sands themselves conspired to keep their memory hidden, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to listen. In this video, we will journey into the forgotten past to uncover the story of the Nabta culture. We will explore who they were, why they built these enigmatic monuments, and what wisdom their stones may still hold for us today. Along the way, we will touch upon the profound connection between ancient peoples and the stars, a connection that hints at a deeper truth, that human beings have always sought to align themselves with the rhythms of the cosmos. But this will not simply be a history lesson. As we peel back the layers of Nabta Playa's enigma, we will also search for the inner meaning, what these stone circles can teach us about our own spiritual journey. For perhaps the ancients were not simply measuring time, perhaps they were mapping the soul's return to its eternal source. So I invite you to step with me into the desert, to walk among the stones, to feel the whispers of the wind that carries messages from a time when humanity was closer to the stars. Together, we will uncover why the forgotten builders of Nabta Playa may hold a key to remembering who we truly are. To understand Nabta Playa, we must first transport ourselves to a Sahara very different from the desert of today. Around 7500 BCE, this region was not a lifeless expanse of sand, but a land of lakes, grasslands, and rains. Herds of cattle grazed freely, nomadic tribes moved with the seasons, and the desert was alive with rhythm. The people who lived here were not primitive in the way modern thought sometimes imagines. They were deeply attuned to cycles of earth and sky. Archaeologists first stumbled upon Nabta Playa in the 1970s, uncovering stone arrangements that seemed impossibly old. What they found were megalithic circles, upright stones, and alignments that pointed directly to the summer solstice and important stars such as Sirius and Orion's Belt. This discovery rewrote history. It revealed that long before Stonehenge, long before Egypt's pyramids, humanity was already raising monuments that linked heaven and earth. Yet what makes Nabta Playa so extraordinary is not only its age, but its purpose. Why would cattle-herding nomads in the middle of Africa spend such effort erecting astronomical markers? Why align their stones with the stars? Some scholars argue it was for practical survival, to track the rains and seasons crucial for herding and food. But others whisper of a deeper layer, that these were sacred rituals, ceremonial gatherings where humans sought communion with the cosmos. In the esoteric traditions of the world,
Stone circles are never mere calendars. They are thresholds, portals between the material and the eternal. At Nabta Playa, every stone seems to hum with symbolic intention, circular patterns echoing the eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth, alignments with the solstice reflecting the dance between light and shadow, knowledge and mystery. Interestingly, Egyptian civilization, which rose thousands of years later, bears striking echoes of Nabta Playa's wisdom. The Egyptians worshipped Sirius, tracking its rising as a signal of the Nile's floods, the lifeblood of their society. The pyramids themselves are aligned with Orion and other stellar markers. Could it be that Nabta Playa was the seed, the hidden root from which Egyptian spirituality blossomed? Some researchers suggest that the knowledge of the sky was carried from these desert herders into the Nile Valley, shaping the spiritual foundations of one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Philosophically, Nabta Playa invites us to question our assumptions about progress. We often believe spirituality and science, ritual, and astronomy are separate, yet here we see a people for whom they were one and the same. The act of marking a solstice was not simply an agricultural tool. It was a sacred ritual, a recognition that human survival is inseparable from cosmic order. In mystical traditions, the circle is the symbol of eternity. It has no beginning, no end. It is the womb of creation and the wheel of time. That the Nabta people chose circles for their monuments is no accident. They were encoding in stone a wisdom we often forget, that we are participants in cycles far larger than ourselves, and that to live well, we must live in harmony with those cycles. As we look back across the desert sands to those stones standing against the horizon, we are not only seeing archaeology, we are witnessing philosophy made tangible, an ancient reminder that human life is meaningful when it is aligned with the rhythms of the universe.
Let us now step closer to the stones themselves. Imagine the desert sun high above, casting long shadows across upright slabs of sandstone that have stood for nearly 9,000 years. To the untrained eye, they may seem like random rocks placed in a circle, but to the attentive observer, they reveal a sacred geometry, a deliberate mapping of earth to sky. The central feature of Nabta Playa is its stone circle, often described as Africa's Stonehenge. At its heart are smaller stones arranged in alignments that point directly to the rising of the sun during the summer solstice. This is profound because it reveals that these ancient people were not merely surviving in the desert, they were thriving through knowledge of time, seasons, and celestial order. They tracked the sky not just as observers, but as participants in a cosmic dialogue. Now, why would a community of nomadic cattle herders dedicate themselves to such monumental effort? To answer this, we must look at the deeper symbolic layers. In nearly every mystical tradition, the solstice represents a turning point, a threshold between light and darkness, an eternal dance of death and rebirth. By aligning their stones with the solstice, the Nabta people were inscribing into the earth a recognition of this cosmic truth, that all life moves in cycles, and within those cycles lies both survival and spiritual awakening. The cattle bones found at Nabta Playa add another dimension. Evidence suggests that cattle were not only a source of sustenance, but also held sacred significance. They were ritually sacrificed, perhaps as offerings to the gods or as part of ceremonies linked to the heavens. This is fascinating when we recall that in later Egyptian culture, the cow became a sacred symbol, embodied in the goddess Hathor, the nurturing mother of the gods, and later in the Apis bull, revered in Memphis. Could it be that Nabta Playa was the womb from which this spiritual symbolism was born? Consider this.
In many ancient traditions, cattle represented abundance, fertility, and divine nourishment. To sacrifice such animals was not destruction, but transformation, the act of giving life back to the cosmic source. It is as if the Nabta people understood that survival itself required reciprocity, an ongoing exchange between humanity, earth, and sky. But beyond cattle and solstices lies a mystery even more staggering. Some researchers have argued that the alignments at Nabta Playa do not only track the sun, but also point to stars, specifically Sirius and Orion's Belt. If true, this would mean that these ancient desert dwellers possessed astronomical knowledge thousands of years before most civilizations are believed to have had it. It is almost as though the stones themselves were a cosmic mirror reflecting the heavens above. In esoteric philosophy, this concept is known as the doctrine of correspondence, as above, so below. The idea that the universe is reflected within the human soul, and that the patterns of the stars echo in the cycles of our lives. Nabta Playa, then, may not simply have been a place to mark time. It may have been a temple designed to align humanity with the greater rhythms of creation. And this is where the mystery deepens further. Who taught these people to look at the sky in this way? Was it purely human observation passed down over generations, or did they inherit this knowledge from an earlier, forgotten culture, perhaps even one lost to history, like Atlantis or some other prehistoric wisdom tradition? Mainstream archaeology offers one path of explanation, but the silence of the stones allows us to sense something more. That Nabta Playa might have been a remnant of a deeper wisdom humanity once possessed, but later forgot. So in the first half of our exploration, we see Nabta Playa as both calendar and temple, both survival tool and spiritual altar. It speaks of a people who lived with reverence for the cycles of time, who honored the gift of cattle as both earthly sustenance and cosmic symbol, and who gazed upward to find meaning written in the stars.
If Part 1 revealed Nabta Playa as both a practical calendar and a sacred altar, Part 2 takes us into the more profound and enigmatic dimensions, the questions that challenge history itself. Let us begin with the stars. The possible alignment of Nabta Playa's stones to Orion's Belt and Sirius has ignited deep debate. Orion's Belt, in particular, carries immense symbolic weight. In ancient Egypt, the three stars of Orion were associated with Osiris, god of death, rebirth, and the afterlife. Sirius, meanwhile, was linked to the goddess Isis, Osiris's divine counterpart, and the celestial herald of the Nile flood. If these associations were already encoded into stone at Nabta Playa thousands of years earlier, then Egypt's spiritual cosmology may not have been an invention of the Nile, but an inheritance from the desert. Here lies a haunting question. Did the Nabta people already know what later civilizations would only discover? Or were they guardians of an even older wisdom, fragments of a forgotten chapter in humanity's story? The design of Nabta Playa goes beyond basic observation. The placement of megaliths suggests an understanding of precession, the slow 26,000-year wobble of Earth's axis that shifts the position of stars over millennia. For nomadic cattle herders to encode this into their monuments suggests either a genius of unimaginable patience and observation, or the preservation of knowledge far beyond their apparent technological level. In the esoteric world, such anomalies are not dismissed as coincidence. They are seen as fingerprints of an ancient teaching tradition, a primordial wisdom that surfaces in different cultures across time.
We see it in the pyramids aligned with cardinal directions, in Mayan temples tracking Venus, in Stonehenge's solar geometry, and here in the Saharan sands where forgotten people mapped eternity in stone. But why would this knowledge matter so much? Why align stone circles with the heavens? The answer is not only practical, it is spiritual. Ancient peoples believed that to live without reference to the stars was to live cut off from divine order. The cosmos was the great text, and the stones of Nabta Playa were its earthly translation. By participating in solstice rituals, by aligning life with the stars, the Nabta people were not just surviving seasons, they were weaving themselves into the fabric of the universe. This speaks to a universal principle: alignment. Just as a circle aligns with itself, just as stars align with seasons, so too must human beings align themselves with higher truths to find harmony. The ancients understood this not intellectually, but ritually, physically, communally. Their stones were reminders, silent but eternal, that humanity is never alone. We are part of a cosmic rhythm. And yet the mystery does not end with symbolism. Some researchers propose that Nabta Playa functioned as more than a ceremonial site. It may have been a pilgrimage center, a gathering point for scattered nomadic groups. Imagine tribes converging at specific times of year, bringing cattle, sharing rituals, reaffirming bonds, and transmitting knowledge. In this way, Nabta Playa was both temple and school, both sanctuary and university of the stars. Here we find echoes of what later became the mystery schools of Egypt and Greece, places where seekers came to learn not only practical knowledge, but the deeper art of living in harmony with divine order. Could Nabta Playa have been one of the first such sanctuaries, a proto-mystery school in the desert, where wisdom was not written in books, but carved into the heavens themselves? There is also a tantalizing idea whispered by some esoteric thinkers, that the builders of Nabta Playa were not merely nomads, but the remnants of a much older civilization, perhaps one displaced by climate shifts or cataclysm. Their wisdom, preserved in stone, survived the collapse of their homeland and seeded the cultures that followed. If true, Nabta Playa is not an isolated anomaly, but a beacon, one of many scattered remnants of a forgotten golden age of humanity. Mainstream archaeology cannot confirm such a story, but the silence of the desert leaves the question alive. The stones do not argue, they simply stand, whispering their truth to those who have ears to hear. And so, as we conclude this deeper exploration, Nabta Playa reveals itself not only as one of the oldest ceremonial sites on Earth, but as a mirror, reflecting both the cosmos above and the hidden depths within us. It is a reminder that to lose our connection with the stars is to lose ourselves, but to realign with them is to remember that we are eternal beings walking in an eternal dance.
We have journeyed deep into the desert and uncovered the secrets of Nabta Playa, its circles, its stones, its silent conversation with the cosmos. But wisdom, no matter how ancient or mysterious, is meaningless if it cannot touch our lives today. The question we must now ask is, how can we take the lessons of Nabta Playa and apply them to our own spiritual journey? The first teaching is about cycles. The Nabta people aligned their stones with solstices and stars because they recognized that life flows in repeating patterns. Day and night, birth and death, abundance and scarcity, all are part of the wheel. Too often in our modern world, we resist cycles. We want constant light, constant growth, constant success. But the ancients remind us there is wisdom in endings, renewal in darkness, and power in surrender. Practical step 1. Align with natural cycles. Begin noticing the rhythms of your own life. Track the moon phases, the rising and setting of the sun, the shifts of the seasons. Reflect on how your energy
creativity, and emotions rise and fall with these natural currents. You may even keep a journal mapping your inner state against the cycles of the moon or year. Over time, you will discover your own inner stone circle, a pattern that connects you to cosmic time. The second teaching is about alignment. The stones of Nabta Playa were not scattered at random. They were placed with intention, each one a marker of harmony between earth and sky. The same principle applies to us. When our thoughts, words, and actions are aligned with our deeper truth, we become powerful conduits of harmony. When we scatter ourselves, living in contradiction, saying one thing but doing another, we lose strength. Practical step 2. Practice alignment within. Each morning, ask yourself, are my actions aligned with my values today? Imagine your life as a stone circle. What stones are out of place? What habits, relationships, or thoughts are misaligned with the greater rhythm of who you wish to be? Gently, day by day, move those stones back into harmony. The third teaching is about sacred offering. The Nabta people sacrificed cattle not in destruction, but as acts of reciprocity, returning life to the cosmic source. We too must learn the art of offering. It does not mean slaughter, but conscious giving, offering time, energy, or love as acknowledgement that we live within a web of exchange. When we give without expectation, we participate in the eternal flow of abundance. Practical step 3. Create a ritual of offering. Once a week, choose something to give without seeking return. It may be a small act of service, a prayer whispered at sunrise, or even setting aside part of your income for someone in need. The act itself matters less than the intention. To remember that life is not only about taking, but about giving back. The fourth teaching is about stillness and observation. The builders of Nabta Playa were observers of the sky. They spent generations watching, listening, and marking patterns. In our age of noise and distraction, we have forgotten the power of stillness. Without stillness, there can be no revelation. Practical step 4. Reclaim the art of watching. Choose a place where you can see the sky, perhaps your balcony, a field, or even a rooftop. Go there at the same time each day for a week. Watch the sun, the clouds, the stars. Allow yourself to notice what changes, what remains. Over time, this practice awakens the same awareness the Nabta people carried, the sense that we are part of something vast and rhythmic. Finally, the fifth teaching is about remembrance. The stones of Nabta Playa endure because they were built to last, to remind generations who came after. In our own lives, we often forget what matters most: connection, meaning, purpose. The ancients built monuments of stone. We can build monuments of intention. Practical step 5. Anchor your remembrance. Create a symbol in your daily space that reminds you of your connection to the cosmos. It could be a stone on your desk, a small circle drawn on paper, or even a ritual phrase you speak each morning. Let this be your personal Nabta Playa, a reminder that you too are aligned with the stars. When we practice these steps, we are not simply mimicking ancient rituals. We are awakening the same awareness that pulsed in those desert herders 9,000 years ago, that we are part of a cosmic story, written not only in stone, but in every sunrise, every season, every heartbeat. The stones of Nabta Playa still stand in the silence of the Sahara, but their silence is not emptiness. It is invitation. An invitation to remember that within us too lies a stone circle, an eternal center that waits for us to align, to listen, and to live in harmony with the great cycles of the universe.
Beneath the shifting sands of the Sahara lies a secret most of the world has never heard. A circle of stones, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, whispering to us across nearly 9,000 years. Nabta Playa is not just archaeology, it is memory. It is a reminder that human beings have always sought connection, not only with the earth beneath their feet, but with the stars above their heads. The builders of Nabta Playa were not kings, not empire makers, but humble herders. And yet they looked to the sky and saw patterns that revealed eternity. They carved those patterns into stone, aligning themselves with the solstice, with Sirius, with Orion. In doing so, they left us a map, not only of the heavens, but of the human soul's yearning to belong to something greater. What can we learn from them? That survival is not only about food and shelter, it is about rhythm, alignment, and offering. That when we live in harmony with cycles, when we give back to life, when we take time to watch and remember, we step into the same eternal dance that guided the ancients. Perhaps this is why so much of Nabta Playa remains mysterious. The stones refuse to tell us everything. They invite us instead to experience what they knew. That truth is not only found in words or theories, but in living alignment with the cosmos. The circle is both monument and mirror. When you stand within it, even in imagination, you feel the timeless pull. As above, so below. As within, so without. So tonight, when you see the stars, pause for a moment. Look for Orion rising or Sirius shining in the east. Remember that thousands of years ago, in a desert now swallowed by silence, people like you and me lifted their eyes to those very same stars and built stones to honor their light. And remember, too, that the circle lives within you, that you are not separate from the universe, but a part of its rhythm, a note in its eternal song. The desert has hidden Nabta Playa for millennia, but perhaps it is resurfacing now in our time because humanity is once again being asked to remember, to realign with the cycles, to rebuild harmony, to listen to the silent wisdom of the stars. The stones are waiting. The question is, are we ready to listen?